I am not a professional writer or a character designer. I may be aspiring, but I am nowhere near the level of League or Arcane writers/artists. So keep that in mind when interacting with this video. Okay, so if you've been anywhere on the internet, you've most likely heard of Arcane, and alongside Arcane, League of Legends. Due to the success of Arcane, League decided to finally give Viktor a VGU. That's visual and gameplay updates for you non-League players. I don't play League. I'm not a League player. That's something I want to clarify as well. I will get things wrong in this. And there's been a bit of a controversy surrounding this update. Some loving it, some hating it. Now, I won't lie. My favorite character in Arcane is Viktor. But personally, I don't connect with this new design. I love the old robot one. That's just my personal taste. I understand that the VGU is a huge step up in terms of animation and character design. However, it just doesn't feel very Viktor-y, if you get what I mean. And I think the root cause of that is just that Arcane Viktor seems to be more mage than machine. And I really wanted to give it a go and rework him into something that combines both League and Arcane influences. However, like I said in the intro, I'm not a professional, I don't know what I'm doing, this is for fun, please keep that in mind, I really don't want people to hush on this. But before I start, I'm doing this for fun. And I'm not saying I'm in any way better than anyone, or that the OG Viktor is worse, or the VGU Viktor is worse. I'm just doing this because I love this character, and I wanted to have a play around and take him in a different direction than what he went in. So, without further chit-chat, let's get into it. This is gonna kinda be like an Arcane rewrite as well, just changing some of Viktor's stuff in Season 2 up to more align with his Season 1 character, as I felt that he took a very sharp turn into humanity sucks mentality, whilst not really doing much to get there, and that's just my personal taste. I really, when it gets down to it, I really don't care about Season 2's direction all that much. I'm just saying, in my personal choice, I would have taken it a different direction. Anyway, my main inspirations for this rework were definitely the OG Viktor and that body horror concept that Christian Link was so invested in, because he mentioned it a couple times in an interview, and I was like, I love body horror. Anyway, I also was looking over his splash art and wanted to incorporate more of that kind of like electricity vibe and the skull imagery that he's so often like involved with. I really wanted to mess around with the idea that Viktor is rejecting the flesh, so I went with a more skeletal approach to his design. Man behind the slaughter. My jumping off idea was to have his skeleton like escaping his body, so I sketched something out and decided I loved this idea so much because I don't know, I really like it, and I thought it would be cool if his kind of like crawling out of his skin could have one of his arms turned into a hex core. I don't know, but yeah, I kept this idea going and sketched out his initial kind of Act 1 look. I didn't do a lot of planning around this. I wish I made some more concept sketches for the early design, but I was kind of really set on this idea. My idea was that when Viktor was resurrected by the hex core, it kind of melted him, because, you know, if you see burn victims or like electrocution victims, it's not pretty, and he got very electrocuted in that one scene. I really enjoyed how his like back brace that he wears became fused to him, so I wanted to incorporate that as well into his design. Basically, in Act 1, since I decided why stop at a redesign, I'm doing a story rework too. So in Act 1, I was thinking that we'd keep the whole he's brought back from the dead thing, but I wanted to have him remain with Jace as they navigate the fact that he's a walking skeleton corpse now. Viktor starts to fester a resentment towards Jace's sentimentality, the thing that brought him back. Since Season 1, Viktor explicitly told Jace to destroy the hex core, and he and Jace have a messy falling out as Viktor grows to resent his link to the hex core, associating it with human sentimentality, we can still have him see Sky and stuff, but her be a manifestation of the hex core instead. Viktor will leave Jace like in the actual show, but he's not going straight into becoming Jesus after the breakup. He tries to destroy the hex core before leaving Jace, but similarly in season 1 he cannot, because the hex core has its dirty little hex claw hands in him. Not like that. Act 2. Festering more resentment towards Jace bringing him back, he starts to associate humanity to the hex core, as I said in Act 1. As it was his own human ignorance that stopped him from destroying it when he had the chance. He tries to rip himself apart to remove the hex core aspects that have still lingered on his flesh, turning it purple, but like a Venom symbiote from fucking Marvel, it kinda latches onto him and stays put. Due to this, he tries to augment himself, adding some robot parts and whatnot. He returns to Zorn and finds a kinship with the augmented people in Zorn, because there was a lot of them in Arcane, and I just thought it would be cool if he had that kind of relationship established. This feeds into him helping with like the manufacturing of cybernetic enhancements that he did in his original story. However, it's still kind of cursed via the hex core. It starts to affect the individuals he's repairing and provides them with strength and supernatural abilities, similarly to the mannequins in Arcane, but this is kind of like something Viktor does not want. He does not want the hex core to affect anything, and he sees it more as a curse, which leads to a cult forming around him as this kind of deity, which he is pressured to perform as. As I always liked that in his League lore, he had this cult that he really did not care for that would just follow him around, and he was doing his own thing, and then a bunch of people were like, oh my god, Viktor, you're so cool. Anyway, Act 3. Jace and Viktor reunite during the build-up to the Noxian invasion. I didn't want to write that stuff. I don't know. Jace never gets sucked into the hex core in this one because Viktor never becomes the magic man, but I'll keep Echo and Heimerdinger going into a different universe in this one. I don't know how it'll be done, but episode 7 was really good, so I wanted to keep it in. Viktor shared his displeasure with Jace and his growing cult of transhumanists that have decided to form around him. He blames Jace's humanity on the whole ordeal. Jace laments that it was selfish of him and that he shouldn't have brought Viktor back from the dead and should have destroyed the hex core, but at least Viktor is alive. Viktor says he's barely anything at all now and forcibly removes himself again from Jace's life. Divorce Arc 2. During the battle between Noxus and Piltover, Viktor decides to get his followers to destroy the hex core. In this universe, they're using the hex core as, I don't know, maybe like a weapon against Noxus, and we have a similar confrontation between Jace and Viktor, like in the OG, but it doesn't result with like the straight up end of the conflict. It's more like the end of those two characters, and then the rest of the fight is resolved through, I don't know, maybe like Zorn and Piltover coming together, but I had issues with that one too. But we're not getting into that. Both would be absorbed into the hex core like in the OG, and they have a talk there or whatnot, and then, you know, we get like the original scene, probably with just some reworking to make it fit more with Viktor. It's a new character. I don't know. Anyway, obviously this is very bare bones, huh? Get it? Badum-ching. I hope this covered the design choices I made. I don't know. And yes, he keeps the blanket Jace gave him as a kind of ironic sentimentality, alluding to the fact that he may despise human sentiment, not humanity, but he is still human. I also wanted to make him no longer tied to Ambessa and have him not be a villain or antagonist, more like an anti-antagonist? I don't know. He's factoring in his own kind of festering resentment. He just wants the hex core destroyed, and he can't do that on his own because it won't let him. Like, he's not an anti-hero, but, you know. Moving on. So now I'm going to try and make kind of like a League mock-up. I don't know. I'm gonna sketch over his League model with my idea and then see what happens. And I started to work on this sketch as he'd appear in the game. As I progressed, I grew increasingly more upset with the lack of a cool mask. as the OG Viktor. His mask, it's identifiable, but it's not like a standout. It's no Mandalorian is what I'm saying. I love Viktor's new mask, but it wouldn't line up with the lore I made, so whilst exploring ideas, I landed on the concept to make his new mask a refurbished Enforcer mask instead, as the eye shape lined up pretty well to Viktor's old design, and I think that adding the breathing tubes, I don't know, I don't know what they're called. I think it added a cool feature. Plus, it tied into the idea that Viktor returns to Zorn with nothing more than his festering hatred of human sentiment. So, you know, one, he lacks a lot of any funds to buy, you know, a special mask, and two, Enforcers are always coded to lack human empathy, as they're shown as oppressors in Arcane, so tying Viktor to that Enforcer imagery furthers that reject the flesh, disavow humanity type idea. You can see in his League sketch that his cloak, I guess loincloth, covers his skeletal aspects, which is like covering his humanity, but we have this skeleton hand sticking out, which could symbolize that he's still human, and if given the option would break out of his mechanical shell, but he's not going to allow it because of how often humanity has screwed him over in that way. And yes, I'm aware that his League moveset, the Hex Claw, shoots lasers, and his skeleton claw would not be able to do that, which is a failure on my end, because I just really liked this cool idea and I wanted to stick with it. So let's just say in the future he can shoot lasers from his hand because he further augments himself. Right now he's retaining some humanity. Going back in time to his face and mask rendering, I really wanted to give this decaying and melted look to Viktor. However, as you can tell, I'm not very used to drawing in this type of style, so whilst it came across, I'm not sure it was very overt that he was specifically melted by the Hex Core. And this is all linking back to his revival scene where the Hex Core legit electrocuted his skeleton. I also made like a little, you know, writing of a possible third act talk thing, so I'll read that out now. Jace brushed his hand through his grimy and dirty hair. It was clear the stress had festered in a near mirror to Viktor's own condition. He's struggling with his words, forcing out a garble. It's amazing, almost glorious that you're still here with me. He had more to ramble on about, but Viktor cut his stammer short. Ah yes, glorious indeed. His rotted fingers laced themselves with a mechanical grace over his crutch. Glorious that I was able to remain alive, trapped in a decaying and desolate. Hey, I didn't mean I have evolved past humanity. Viktor spat out. His creaking limbs stretched out in mockery, skin pulled in directions that near ripped it off its holds. Jace rubbed his temples. His back arched into itself. He just sat on the ground, toying with the moss that grew through the cracking pavement. Viktor, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would. He's just tired of hearing Jace's voice. No, it's alright, Jace. In a way, I have superseded becoming. He let out a small chuckle from strained chords. The final evolution. The glorious evolution. The statement rang in ironic silence. Viktor looked down at Jace, who stared back, melancholic. Viktor would not gift the same sympathy that so spared him. He broke away from the eye contact. His posture retreated backwards, huddling itself under his cloak. You kept the blanket. Jace could have been asking or stating. The lack of any discernible tone made it hard to tell. Viktor could only respond with, sometimes it gets cold. Now that I have gotten the major references down for his character, I wanted to try and produce a more professional splash art for his champion rework. That's in quotation marks, by the way. I know this wasn't like an overall rework with the moveset and whatnot, more like a visual rework. However, I've never done splash art, like, ever. Some of my art has high rendering, but it's not really, like, anything that you would go, oh wow, that's rendered so well. No, it's more like, it's pretty good, but it's not great. And also, like, I do character illustration. Like, I do comics. So this is kind of like a jump into the unknown for me. I've never done a splash art. I don't know how to do a splash art. I sat down and watched How to Splash Art Part 1 by Arron Min to get most of, you know, the advice for creating a piece like this. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to say that this won't be anything amazing. It's my first adventure into this type of art. I'm welcome to constructive tips on how to improve moving forward. However, please just be nice when leaving such comments. I'm human after all, and I'm aware this is riddled with mistakes, so I really don't need those, like, rubbed in my face about it. But, you know, like, I'm open to it. I'm also, like, not a classically trained artist either, so, you know, there'll be mistakes in anatomy and rendering and then proportions and perspective and all that, but let's move on. I did a small study of Viktor's past splash art designs, taking note that most of his splash arts have a low angle shot. He has a big connection to a triangular shaped language, and there's always, like, a laser. Incorporating this aspect, I made some thumbnails, and whilst I didn't incorporate a low angle as much as I would have liked, I decided to go with this thumbnail design, as I liked the cape swishing around to the front as well as the perspective of it all. So I set out to work refining my sketch. I wanted to make this splash art be a mid-tone illustration. I don't know if that's correct, as it seems to be the easiest to achieve. I set about adding contrast, dark parts in the foreground, more contrast on the figure, lighting and whatnot, but I got really into doing this, so I kind of just zoned out. I used gradient mapping originally, thinking I could just get by and not actually do any coloring on him. However, this felt like a bit of a cheat, so I went back and tried the true method of overlaying my coloring layer. I'm not sure if that's, you know, what it's actually called, but you know, where you put the overlay in color mode over a grayscale image. Yeah, afterwards, it was time to take my blending brush and make up this man. I kept sending updates to my friends to bounce ideas off during the development, because, I don't know, I was like having a lot of fun with this. So yeah, I continued to work on this, and I'll just play the speed lapse, time lapse thing. Enjoy! And done. Now, this is my first splash art I've ever done, so I kept it simple and didn't do a background, focusing more on Viktor. I'm aware there's some issues with lighting, especially here, as well as the anatomy issues with the head practically falling off of his body and these sausage fingers, which I wish I'd added some darker foreground aspects, but like, however, overall, I'm pretty happy with how this came out as a first time. I feel like this project really helped me develop as an artist, which is really nice. So yeah, that's my Viktor Arcane rework fun project. This isn't meant to be a hit piece on Arcane or the OG Viktor. It's just meant to be a fun little project for me, so please treat it just as a fun little project by an independent artist rather than an overall critique. This is just what I wanted to see from Viktor in Arcane, so I made it so. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. I've done videos similar to this with Indigo Park and my own OC, so check those out if you're interested. And I'd love to hear from you, the viewer, on what you might want to see from me next. But then again, my channel is kind of all over the place, so don't expect my next content to be 100% falling in line with this video either. Subscribe if you like. Don't if you're not going to engage with the videos, because inactive subscribers is detrimental to channels or something. I don't know, I saw it on YouTube. But yeah, goodbye.